Hey, everybody. Super excited to be here again. About 2 weeks ago, the Service Hub PM group came and talked about scaling support. And today we're going to talk about all of the tools that we've got for customer success. Quick note with forward-looking statements, things are, of course, subject to change. So when we talk roadmap, these are not guarantees, but it'll give you an idea of where we're going. Quick introductions. So I am Paul Weston. I'm GEM and VP of Product for Service Hub. And joining me today is the real star of the show, Colette King, who is our product lead for customer success tools. And she's going to take the majority of this to show you the product, actually get in, give you some tips and tricks. So this is going to be a really good one. Definitely put any questions you've got in the Q&A. We'll try to get to as many as we can today, and we'll follow up if necessary. So quick agenda here. I'm going to do an intro to Service Hub, kind of set some context and talk about the customer success landscape and market. And then Colette's going to really own the majority of this and show you the product. Okay, so let's start off with how we think about Service Hub. This is our mission for Service Hub. Our mission is to help millions of organizations grow better by scaling support and driving retention. On that scaling support side, again, a couple of weeks back, we talked about our help desk tools, talked about our customer agent, our knowledge base agent, our reporting capabilities. So lots of really great things happening there. The story today is all about driving retention through our customer success tools. And this will kind of frame it up in the context of Hub. So we all know Marketing Hub helps marketers attract visitors and create leads. Sales Hub helps SDRs build pipeline and sales reps close deals. Then what happens? What happens after that deal closes? This is where CSMs step in. They help onboard, engage, and retain and grow their customers. And underneath that, we've got this horizontal layer stretching end to end for support reps and support teams and self-service tools to help customers when they have any issues. And then it flows all the way back. So you think about your install base or your customers. Your customers are often your best source of leads. Your customers are often your best source of prospecting. And so it really completes that whole flywheel if you think about it that way in the HubSpot context. So why do we decide to get into customer success in the first place? Well, as we were interviewing a bunch of HubSpot customers, we would ask the leaders of these post-sales departments, the folks that lead the customer support and customer success teams. And we would ask how they measure success. And of course, there's efficiency metrics for support. They want to close more tickets. They want to be more efficient. But one thing that kept on coming up over and over again in terms of success metrics was customer retention. And so as we dug into this more and more, we realized that there was just like a huge gap in the market for a CRM native customer success solution. And so a lot of the tools out in this market right now, either a lot of our customers aren't using a customer success software, or the customer success software that they're using is kind of hard to use. It's dated, it's clunky, it's bloated, might be slow time to value. Maybe that software is disconnected, which comes with all sorts of different data integration and integrity issues, kind of like having like a second CRM. It's like you have two different sources of truth for different teams, which of course is a huge problem. And lastly, a lot of these tools out in the market are very expensive. And we've talked to some customers who pay more for their CSP than they do for their entire HubSpot instance. And so we stepped in here and decided to build customer success tools with customer health scores and CSM alerts and all sorts of different really great book of business management tools directly into the service seat inside of HubSpot. So with that service seat, you get access to both the support tools and the customer success tools. And so in the old way of doing things, you would have kind of point solutions, these silos or these islands for scaling support and driving retention. And now with Service Hub, you've got all of these tools in one place with the same seats. And it's all, of course, powered by that HubSpot customer platform, all that shared data, really great data across marketing, sales, service, and success. And before I pass it over to Colette, just some here. About a month ago, we had our spring spotlight, as many of you know. This is a big moment to really level up so many different areas of the product. And I like to just point out that Service Hub shipped 74 feature updates as a part of that. Many of them were customer success updates. And I'm really excited for Colette to take the baton and just show you what's new in the product and where we're going with the product. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Colette, and she can drive the product deep dive.
Hey everybody, how are you? My name is Colette King. As everybody has said a bunch of times today, I'm the product lead for the customer success tools here at HubSpot, which includes the customer success workspace, health scores, and then feedback surveys also sits within the brain space of customer success as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Um, so I think one of the really exciting things about HubSpot getting into the customer success space that I want to make super clear is that now Service Hub spans the entire post sales process. So you can run your onboarding, your continuous engagement of your customers, your retention process, and the actual growth and expansion of your customers inside of HubSpot. And you don't need to go anywhere else. And you can create this lovely flywheel back with the rest of your organization. So I'm going to be talking about a couple of, I'm not going to talk about all of these features today. I'm going to focus in on a few of them. But just to give you an example, you can build your knowledge base on HubSpot. So you can have your self-service support tools, giving your own customers their best tips and tricks, best practices, troubleshooting. You can use the customer agent to help engage your customers and answer support questions. You can send NPS and CSAT surveys to your customers using our feedback surveys and insights tool. You can triage support tickets using Help Desk. You can engage, retain, and grow your customers using the CS Workspace and Health Scores, which we're going to talk a lot more about today. And then finally, you can actually send leads back to your sales and marketing team based off of those health scores. So like I said, by having everything in one platform, HubSpot, your CS interactions, your health scores, and your feedback insights can actually enhance your marketing experience for your customers and speed up your sales team. So now it's time to actually get into the product. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the customer success workspace, which I'm hoping you all may have seen before, but if you haven't, this is the newly released live to all customer success workspace, which is available with a Service Hub Pro or Enterprise seat. And it is really designed to be a home base for your customer success team inside of HubSpot. So very similar to the sales workspace, if you've seen it before, it is filtered down and designed for an individual user's experience. But this is a customer success specific space. So up here, you've got a tab where CSMs can keep track of their customers. They can keep track of services, which can represent things like onboarding, implementation, training, service delivery. They can manage their revenue. They can see all of the tasks that they have for the day. They can track their schedule. They can see interactions from their customers. And this is actually a pretty recently redesigned workspace. We rolled out the redesign at Spring Spotlight, which Paul was just talking about. And the redesign really made it work a lot better for CSMs. So we changed up some of these tabs to make them more CS focused. But most, I think, interestingly for some of the admins, we actually changed a lot of the things about settings. So some important things to call out for the admin experience. The customer success workspace asks you to pick the object that you use to represent your customers. So you can use companies, you can use contacts, or you can use custom objects. We also know that very often the default company owner property or the default contact owner property gets taken by the sales team. So you probably have a custom HubSpot user property that you're using to track which CSM owns this customer or which onboarding specialist is managing the relationship with this client. And you can tell us exactly which property that is right here in the drop-down menu. And then if you are tracking a renewal date on the same property that you're using to track manage your customers, you can tell us that here. And this ownership property, you can tell us the exact same thing for the services and revenue objects as well. Now for services and revenue, where we've got on the services tab, you get to choose between using the service object or the ticket object. And both of those are pipeline objects. The services object is a new standard object that HubSpot introduced. Well, I guess it's newish. We introduced it last year at Inbound. It's part of our object library, which you haven't checked it out. Please please take a minute and check it out. The object library is excellent. But the service object is a new standard object that's designed to represent things like onboarding, implementation, training, any of those sort of like intangible, somewhat time-bound offerings that you are selling or delivering to your customers. So it's not meant for internal project management, but it's designed for that external project management collaboration that you're doing with your customer. Once you've got your service object all set up, you can come in here and, like I said, you can tell us which property you're using to track CS ownership. You can say what's the renewal date or the end date. We have a built-in default property for target end date. There's target end date and actual end date because we know that not all onboardings go exactly as planned. But most importantly, I think for the admins, for these different objects is you get to decide which pipelines matter to your CS team. So we know that you may have 5, 6, 7 pipelines set up in your account, but not all of those are actually relevant to your CS team. And it's the same thing for revenue. You may have a couple of different deal pipelines, but one might be for new business and one might be for renewals and then another one for expansion. You get to choose which pipelines are actually visible in the workspace, keeping your team super focused on the things that are most important to them. Jumping back into the workspace, you'll see that health scores are a really big part of our workspace. And we can talk a little bit about the specific reports in a second, but I want to talk a lot more about how to actually build a health score because that is really the heart of the customer success workspace today. And it's one of the key tools that we recommend using to manage retention and even work towards expansion with your customers. So I saw a question in the chat earlier about needing access to a Service Hub seat if you're a super admin. The answer is sort of. If you are a super admin who just wants to view the CS workspace, maybe you want to view it as one of your team members, you want to just set up the settings, all of that is possible as a super admin without a Service Hub seat. But if you actually want to build a health score or take any actions inside of the workspace, you will need a Service Hub seat. So you will need a Service Hub seat in order to build what I'm about to show you. So in the customer success workspace settings, we've got access to health scores. If you are on Service Hub Pro, you get access to 1 health score included in your plan. If you're on Service Hub Enterprise, you get access to 10 health scores. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch screens. So some of you may have seen this, but last week I put out a call on LinkedIn to see who had health scores that they had recently built in HubSpot, were trying to build in HubSpot, to get a real live example to actually build for you guys. So this is a real health score that I took from one of our customers on LinkedIn, Carlos. I don't know if he is here on the call today. He said he might be able to make it. We had a chat last Friday. He walked me through what he was trying to build, and then I went ahead and I built it in HubSpot. So I'm going to show you all how I did that now. Again, I want to reiterate that health scores will live on the object that you chose to set as representing your customer. So if you say our customers are represented as contacts, you will build contact-based health scores. If your customers are represented by custom objects, then you will go ahead and build a custom object-based health score. All right. So some of the things that Carlos and I talked about last week are wanting to make sure that they're capturing a slow onboarding. So like I said earlier, not all onboardings go exactly as planned. I saw some comments about that in the chat. And so if the onboarding is taking longer than expected, we want to make sure that we're deducting points for that because that's not a great thing. So I went into our health score builder and I took onboarding time is greater than or equal to 14 days. And I subtracted 15 points. So that's an onboarding that's taking longer than expected. We'll say that a normal onboarding is between 1 to 1.5 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. But if a customer onboarded really quickly, so if they onboarded in less than a week, I wanted to reward that customer. I wanted to say, this is a really healthy customer. They are clearly super engaged with the product. They know what's going on and they're responsive to the team. It is really important when you are building health scores to make sure that you have both positive inputs and negative inputs. If you only have positive inputs, your score will only ever go up. And if you only have negative inputs, your score will only ever go down. You need to have both inputs in order to make sure that the score is dynamic and can go both up and down based off of the customer's actions. Now, one thing I want to call out about is how I built this property right here. So the onboarding time, you'll see it's a company property, but it is actually a roll-up property or a sync property, which you can see right here, that I took from the services object. So the services object, which you can use to represent your onboarding, and it is what we're going to recommend, has something called stage calculated properties. This is a new feature that we rolled out for Spring Spotlight as well, that calculates how long the service object spent in every single pipeline stage. So this one is showing the cumulative time in the in progress stage. So how long was this specific record in progress? I synced that over to the company object as onboarding time because that's really what I care about. And I've included it in my health score right here. So you don't have to manually calculate this. Your CSMs don't have to manually calculate how long this took. As long as they're updating the onboarding object through the pipeline, all of this is going to automatically flow through into the health score. All right, so the next thing on Carlos's list is significant bugs or issue. If a customer experiences one or more critical or high priority bugs, we want to make sure that that gets taken into account as well. So with Service Hub, you get access to the CS workspace and all of our scale support tools, including help desk, knowledge base, and all of those other good things. And so we've got our support tickets already in HubSpot. No need to sync them over from any other system. So the first thing I did is, if there is a ticket that was created this month, I want to subtract 10 points. But we're missing that critical or high priority piece. So I'm going to use association settings to do that. Association settings allow you to filter down specifically which objects you care about. So you don't necessarily care that any ticket was created this month. You specifically care that an urgent or high priority ticket was created. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this filter just to show you exactly how I did that. So when you open up association settings, you'll see two different ways of filtering. The first one is through association labels. Associations describe the relationship between two objects at HubSpot. So a contact to a company or two companies to each other. And you can use HubSpot's defaults or you can customize them. You can use association labels and say, the really common example I give is maybe you've labeled a bunch of contacts as key stakeholders and you're using association labels to kind of indicate that relationship between the contact and the company. You might say, I only care about tickets filed by key stakeholders, or I only care about emails opened from key stakeholders. And that works great. But oftentimes you already have a property on the object that is tracking that information. And it's not really a description of the relationship, it's a description of the object itself. And you want to filter based off of that. So that's where this new and add filter comes in. So you're going to go ahead and click here. I'm going to search for priority, which is a property on the ticket object. And then I'm going to say is any of, and I'm going to choose high and urgent. And then, so now this is only going to include tickets that have been created in the last month where the priority is set to high or urgent. The last piece of the association settings is aggregation. So this decides how all of the associated objects roll up into that company score. There may be tens to hundreds of tickets that are associated with a company in a given month, depending upon how often someone is filing a support issue with you. That means that you could have, you could add 2 points every single time a ticket is created, and that could blow your score out of the water. And that may be exactly what you want to track, but you also might just want to take an average of the points. So average the score of all of the tickets that are associated with that company, or you could just take the minimum. So as long as one ticket is associated, that's all I care about. I'm going to ignore everything else, or I'm going to take the maximum value of all of those associated objects to the company object. So for me, I'm going to sum these up because I want to add points every single time a new ticket that is marked as high or urgent gets associated with this company. Go ahead and click confirm. And I'm going to mark this as subtracting 10 points because that's pretty serious to me. And again, in the spirit of making sure that we have both positive and negative inputs going into our score, I have decided to add 1 point anytime a ticket is closed and the SLA is completed on time. It's not a huge impact to the score, so I'm only going to add 1 point, but I want to make sure that we are sort of rewarding the score when our support team is meeting those positive behaviors. All right, next thing we've got is low NPS. And so when Carlos and I chatted, he said that he cared as if anybody at the company submitted a low NPS, not just key stakeholders, not just power users, anybody. So if you look here, you can see that the last NPS submission is less than or equal to 3, and I'm going to subtract 1 point. Here we've got last NPS survey rating is 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to add 0. That's neutral, not positive, not negative. And last NPS survey is 9 or 10, and I'm going to add 2 points because that's pretty rare that we're getting that 9 or 10 on the NPS rating. And you'll notice that I am only subtracting 1 point and I'm only adding 2 points, even though the group score limit is 10, because I'm expecting multiple contacts to submit an NPS rating over the course of a couple weeks, a couple months, and I don't want to get this group to get maxed out too quickly. So let's say you have 3 people submit an NPS rating and they all submit it at a 9 or a 10, well, you're automatically adding 6 points. If you get 5 people submitting an NPS rating at a 9 or a 10, you're at 10 points. So that's why I'm keeping these inputs really low, even though the group score is much higher. The next thing was CSM sentiment. So the way that Carlos described it was the CSM just gets a weird vibe from the customer. Something doesn't feel right. And this makes sense. A lot of people include CSM sentiment as a part of their health score because your CSMs know your customers best. They talk to them all the time. They know what a healthy customer feels like, and they know when something feels a little bit off. So down here, I've added in the company property of CSM sentiment. I'm going to add 5 points if they're healthy because, again, I really trust my CSM's judgment. I'm going to add 3 points if they're neutral, and then I'm going to subtract 10 points if they're at risk. I want this group to max out if a CSM marks their customer as at risk. I want this to be a thing that moves the score significantly and my team starts paying attention to. We bring in any other supports that we might need. And then the next thing we talked about was usage. So the way that we at HubSpot recommend tracking usage data is through custom events. Custom events are available with any enterprise hub. It does not have to be Service Hub Enterprise, although it absolutely can be. That will give you access to custom events. With custom events, you can sync your own custom events using our custom events API. You can use one of our app partners like Amplitude, Pendo, or Segment and sync custom events using their integrations. Or you can use HubSpot's tracking code and embed it in your product and have it sync directly to HubSpot without another integration. So here I've got login and I've got generate report. Login is kind of my baseline usage, where generating report is showing a little bit more engagement. So here you can see that I want my custom event is labeled login, and I want to add points when someone has logged in at least 7 times in the last 7 days. So because this is a custom event and not a property, so it is an action that's either being taken by an object in HubSpot or on an object in HubSpot, I get to do more filtering around things like frequency and time frame. So as long as someone is logging in once a day for the last 7 days, I'm going to add 2 points. And then if they generate a report at least 4 times in the last month, so looking at roughly once a week, I'm going to add 5 points. Then the next couple of things that we talked about, I grouped together as just kind of critical signals. These are all, if they start happening, we really want to pay attention. So those were overdue payments, low consumption, or the key point of contact at the company is changed or missing. So the first one is payment status. Is any of missed payment? I'm going to subtract 15 points. I want this score to go down significantly. And I have filtered this by looking at only deals that have been marked as closed won, because those are my customers. Those are the ones that I'm actually expecting a payment for. And currently in this example, I'm tracking payment on the deal object. So I've filtered it down to deals is closed won is equal to true. I'm going to sum that together. And again, missed payment will subtract 15 points. I've also calculated a usage ratio. I'm using marketing contacts as an example, so you are all familiar with the kind of consumption or usage that I'm thinking of. And this is actually a calculated property. So over here, I created a calculated property where I have 2 properties on the company. I have marketing contacts purchased and marketing contacts used last month that I'm assuming is going to be syncing from my billing system. So as long as that is not 0 or negative, we should be fine. And so in here, I've said if the marketing contacts usage ratio is less than 0, subtract 15 points, because that means they are not using all of the contacts that they have purchased inside of HubSpot. Then we've got number of decision makers. If anybody leaves the company and we lose that decision maker and the CSM updates that in the CRM, we're going to subtract 15 points as well. So that is sort of how I would build Carlos's health score in HubSpot. I recognize that I have been talking for a while, so I just want to check in with the chat and see if there's any questions that we should jump in on.
I'm loving this. Every demo I've ever seen or given of scoring has always been like, yeah, and you can add and remove factors. Moving on now. And so to see it built out in this depth, I think is great. Carlos is here. I don't know if you saw that. So Carlos, thanks for suggesting this. But yeah, mostly people are just liking it.
Okay.
I don't think there are any urgent questions.
Colette, right. I'll hop in with a couple things real quick.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to make a comment of just like how flexible this workspace is. I think a lot of folks have remarked that it's just great that you can select, contacts, companies, custom objects in order to create these scores, which is really cool. One question that did come up was, can we adjust the customer success space based on the user's team? So for example, a CS team might appreciate a service object and CS rep combo, but an education team might prefer to approach it from a custom object or a company owner, as an example.
Totally. That is something that the team is actually working on right now. We are hoping to have out towards the end of Q2, beginning of Q3, where you will be able to set up custom views and owner properties for your workspace based off of the user's primary team in HubSpot. This is probably going to be a Service Hub Enterprise feature only. And we're going to allow, I think we're going to start with about 5 workspaces. So 5 team, and you can have multiple teams in one workspace. So the way that that's going to work is the object on every tab will stay the same, but the different views and properties that the team is focused on can be team specific.
Thanks, Colette.
All right. If there's nothing else, then I'm going to keep talking about health scores. So the other thing that I just want to call out really quickly is this actions button up here. So we've got a couple things. One is preview distribution, which I will show you, but I will admit this is not a portal that I use every single day. So there's not going to be a lot of data here, but I just want to give you a sense of what it actually shows. It will show you the average score of your entire customer base. So any companies that you selected on this list of here will be considered eligible companies. It'll show you the total number of companies who are eligible and the average score across all of those companies. It will show you the sample size that it tested. If you have a really low sample size or eligible company size like mine, those will be matching. And it will show you how many companies fall into or contacts or custom objects. Again, this works for all different object types, fall into each of these buckets. And then it gives you a graph of the score distribution if you were to turn your score on right now as it was. The next thing is test a company. So I'm going to test Green Group. And we're going to see that it matches 0 of 13 criteria and it has a score of 20. This is basically what I was expecting because, again, this is not a portal that I'm using all the time. But what I wanted to call out here is you'll see in support tickets, it's going to say minus 60 points. That means that there are a bunch of tickets that have been marked again as high priority or urgent and have been created in the last month. But the group score limit is only 20 points. So that means that this group can only subtract a maximum of 20 points from the overall score. So it's not going to take away 60 points. It's only going to be able to take away 20 points. So if you are building out your score or you've already built your score and you have companies and you're like, why is this not working the way that I expected? The test a company or test a record option in the score builder is a really great way to start to figure out exactly what criteria it's matching, what points are being contributed, added, taken away. I had a customer I was troubleshooting with last week, and she actually had mixed up some properties. So the property that she had included in her score had no values inside of HubSpot, and all we had to do was switch that out. But the test a record function is really, really helpful. I'm seeing some questions. We've got starting score of a company is at 50 or what number? When you turn the score on, all scores, all eligible records will be immediately scored, but they will start from a place of 0. You will likely not see 0 as long as you have some data in your CRM, because they will be scored given the current criteria, but it starts from 0. And then, do scoring groups have decay over time properties like lead scoring? Yes. If I leave the tester record, one thing that I didn't touch on too much in this demo that I have talked about more in some others is you can add 2 kinds of groups in your scoring, just like in lead scoring. And these groups sort of mirror the ways that we store data in HubSpot. So you have property groups, which are properties of objects, and you can include basically any data inside of HubSpot. So you've got the company, which is the primary object the score lives on, and then the associated ticket, deal, contact, organization, which is my custom object. Or you can have event groups. Events, like I said, are actions taken by an object in HubSpot or taken on an object in HubSpot. So this includes things like a contact clicking on an ad or a CTA, custom events, which we talked about earlier, which is how I recommend bringing in usage data, filling out a form, integration events, meetings. All of these are different event types. For event types, you have the ability to decay scores. So I will go up here and show you my usage data. If I wanted to, I could turn decay cannot be applied because I have time frames and frequency, which is a form of decay. But if I didn't have decay already, if I didn't have that turned on, I would be able to set it to reduce by a certain percentage over a specific time frame. So that is available. All right, once your score is set and you are good to go, and as a reminder, you get 100 points to distribute across all of your score groups. But once it's good to go, you go into settings, you set your thresholds for what counts as healthy, neutral, and at risk, and then you can go ahead and turn your score on. I'm actually only going to save my score because I don't want it to break all of the automation that I have already created. But once your score is up and running inside of HubSpot, it unlocks a bunch of other functionality throughout the CS workspace and throughout the CRM. So I heard someone call this out earlier because they could see my tabs. But one of the really common things that I recommend people doing if their CS team maybe isn't responsible for expansions and their sales team is building out a workflow to automatically create customer success qualified leads for your sales team right inside of HubSpot. So I've gone ahead and created this workflow. It's based off of health score. So we're making sure that this customer is healthy. They've got a health score at least of 80. Their renewal date is less than 200 days from now. So they're getting ready to talk about re-signing their contract with us. The CSM sentiment is healthy, and they're associated to a deal, a renewal deal, but they're not currently associated to a deal in our expansions pipeline. So that means that no one started talking to them about maybe expanding or upgrading, even though they're seeing a lot of success with our product. So I'm going to go ahead and create a lead and have that show up automatically in the sales workspace. So here are 3 leads that were created using that workflow and have already been populated for my alter ego sales rep, Colette King, to go ahead and work on without needing any meeting or Slack or handoff from the CS team to the sales team. This is one of the huge value adds of having everybody on the exact same platform. And sales is, and this is my proof that they are those same customers. They are marked as healthy and they have a score of 80. And sales isn't the only team that gets to benefit. Your marketing team gets to benefit too. So we know how difficult it can be to find really strong reference customers or case studies and use cases. So you can just create a list of your happiest customers. So again, customer health score is greater than or equal to 80. They are an actual customer and they're in our target market of having an annual revenue of over $2 million. So now this list will dynamically update, and anytime marketing needs to find a case study or see who might be a good reference customer, they can go ahead and just check this list. Again, they don't have to pester the CS team. They don't have to remind them to update some Excel spreadsheet. It's already existing inside of HubSpot. And if you want to get really fancy, you can go ahead and create another workflow that sends a Slack notification to your marketing team every time a new customer gets added to this list. On the flip side, you can also use this to improve the marketing experience for your customers, particularly your unhappy ones. So when a customer is really engaged and excited about your product, they're seeing a lot of success, you're probably going to talk to them and market to them very differently than you would talk to or market to a customer who's struggling and not seeing a lot of success with your product. You don't want to hit them with an upgrade email or talking about all these great use cases of other customers who are seeing so much success. Instead, you probably want to hit them with some training material or enablement or re-engagement campaigns. And you can use lists to do that as well. So here, I've just created a very simple list of any customer with a low health score. Anybody who's below 50, considered not healthy, we're going to mark them as unhappy customers. We're going to use this list to suppress them from specific marketing campaigns that maybe aren't appropriate for them, but then also target them for other marketing campaigns that are designed to re-engage them with the product. So again, this is what happens when all of this lives inside of HubSpot. Everything's in one place. It is really easy to just share information, benefit from each other's insights without having to get an Excel spreadsheet that someone has to manually update, go on Slack, or get in a meeting. So that is probably the bulk of my demo. I realize I didn't talk that much about the service object, so if there are questions, I can talk a little bit more about that as well, but open to questions.
A couple that came up in the chat just recently that I've replied to, but I think are worth calling out to the group. One person asked about creating a score just for target accounts, like if you're doing account-based management. And so you probably touched on the ability to limit this to specific lists, or I don't know if there's a different way you would go about it, but I think that might be worth highlighting.
For sure. So like I said, if you have Service Hub Pro, you get access to 1 health score. If you have Service Hub Enterprise, you get access to 10. The very first thing that we're going to ask when you create a health score is we are going to ask which records you want to score. So we're going to start with a default of all companies, all contacts, all custom objects, or you can use a list to narrow that down. So you can create a list of only active customers. You can create a combination of lists, up to 5 lists to combine those. So yes, if you only wanted to target a very specific group of customers, you could do that. If you're on Service Hub Pro, you just get the 1 score. So you would have to choose the 1 group of customers that you want to target. If you're on Service Hub Enterprise, you can create a wide variety of scores. In fact, we recommend it because it allows you to get a lot more specific with your scoring. In general, we see people breaking it up by life cycle stage. So giving an onboarding score versus a new customer score versus a long-time customer score. We also see people break it up by region, by product line, because usage can vary wildly. Take HubSpot, for example. The usage that we would expect to see from someone in Marketing Hub could be very different than the usage that we expect to see in Service Hub, or some combination of those. The other thing that we'll often see is scores based off of the sort of strategic importance of the customer. So if they are a key account, like this question is asking, you want to make sure that your engagement with that customer is going to look really different, and you might be more sensitive to missing certain things versus having one for maybe your scaled CS team. And so you can have those different scores.
That was a much better and more thorough answer than I gave. So I hope whoever asked it in the chat was listening. I'll let you also give a better answer to one I gave short shrift to. May asked if you have a contact-based lead score, can you pull that into a company-based health score? And
yes,
since lead score outputs a property, I assume all the stuff you showed earlier for associated records applies. But if you want to touch on that,
100%. That is a really cool thing about the scoring system in HubSpot, whether it's lead scoring or health scoring. Both of them produce properties, which I can show you here. For us, we have a health status property. So that's where they fall into those categories of healthy, neutral, or at risk. And then the number. These properties, just like the properties created from lead scoring, can be used across HubSpot. So they can be used in reports, they can be used in workflows, they can be used in the other scoring system. So they're super flexible, normal properties that can be used across HubSpot. And also, this is a very small update, but it is one that we had to wait a shockingly long time for. Aren't these color properties so pretty? Like, we did not have these colored boxes and colored rings for probably 6 months, and we got them for Spring Spotlight. And when I finally saw that, I was so excited. So
people love colors. I
love colors.
Makes a huge difference. Small detail makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. We are starting to roll. I saw someone asking if you can use color gels for in HubSpot. Property decorators are slowly being phased into the platform. I'm not the expert on how that works for the availability, but it is something that the team is actively thinking about and working on. So we've got these colors for health scores, and I'm very happy about it. I am realizing there's one really important thing that I forgot to talk about, which is alerts. Alerts was actually, I don't know how I forgot, because this was like our big thing for Spring Spotlight. I got so excited about health scores. But for health scores, and honestly for a lot of things within your customer base, your CSMs mostly care when something changes. They kind of know who the customers who are struggling, they might know the customers who are doing really well, and they can have views of like who is currently at risk, who is currently really healthy. But what's really hard for them to remember is who was healthy last week that's now on this at-risk group, or who was at risk who's no longer on this view that I have built on my customers tab. And that's where alerts come in. Alerts are designed to help CSMs track changes within their book of business. Right now, they are limited to alerts, but over the summer, we'll be rolling out other things, other changes that you can track inside of HubSpot. So you'll see here, we've got risk alerts and we've got opportunity alerts. Risk alerts are when something is going in the wrong direction, and opportunity alerts are when something is improving or getting better. So you can see here that my company Green Group had their health score decrease from healthy to at risk. They actually had a couple of changes this morning as I was testing data out. But this is a great way for CSMs to come in on a Monday morning, Tuesday morning, start their day, gap between meetings, and see what's going on within their book of business. Is there something that they need to follow up on? And it helps them stay proactive without having to get into the nitty gritty of all of their views all of the time and hold so much information in their heads. So alerts are something that I'm really excited about. Right now, they're limited to health score changes, but that is going to be changing over the course of the rest of the year. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we've got our health score summary reporting. This is specific to the individual CSM's book of business. So this is my success workspace, and this is a health score summary card that is specific to me and my customers. So the average score for my customers currently is 52. 44% of my customers are at risk, 33% are healthy. This is a score distribution for my customer base, not the entire install base. And this is how the average score of my book of business has changed over time.
Colette, can I chime in with a
Yes.
question from the chat?
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit more about how there's a few questions about product usage data?
Yes.
Obviously, a critical component to any health score. Could you talk about the different options that exist to connect product usage data to health scores?
Yeah. So once the data is inside of HubSpot, whether you're bringing it in a property or as an event, you can basically get it into the health score. Particularly, it's really easy if it's on the company or the contact. That would be where I would recommend putting your product usage data, because that's where it's going to be the most relevant. You can bring it in as a property. That wouldn't necessarily be my recommendation, because usage data is often an action that a contact or a company is taking, and we want to store actions as events inside of HubSpot. Long term, this will make your life a lot easier with much more powerful reporting and much more fine-grained tuning and health scores with that sort of frequency and time frame that I was talking about. I'm just going to pull it up here.
While you're pulling that up, I'll just chime in and say we've shipped a bunch of different partnerships and integrations with tools like Amplitude, Segment, Pendo, and others. And when you connect those integrations, they'll automatically flow in event data into HubSpot. And then that event data can be used in these health scores too. So
yeah. So that event data is exactly what I am talking about right here. And this is how we would recommend you pulling your usage data into HubSpot. Like Paul said, you can do it really easy. Click of a button, the same as setting up any integration with our partners, Amplitude, Pendo, and Segment. They have all updated their integrations to use our new custom events API. If you have another product usage data tracking provider that you use who has not updated their integration to use our new custom events API, let them know. It's super easy to use. All three of those partners really enjoyed working with it, and it makes it a lot easier for you to bring the data into HubSpot. If you are not working with another third-party provider, you can actually track that data using HubSpot's own tracking code. So if you go ahead and set up a custom event, you get the option once you set up the event with all of the metadata and things that you want to track. The next step is they give you a link that you can actually go ahead and hand over to your engineering team to embed directly in the product. This is very similar to how a lot of those other third-party tracking systems work. There's some tracking code that gets embedded in the product. And then when a specific action fires, it sends that data back. In this case, it's just sending it back to HubSpot instead of sending it to a third party. Full Story, I do not believe have updated their integration to use I just saw that question in the chat. I don't think they've updated their integration to use our new custom events API, but they are much more likely to do so if you let them know that that's something that you're interested in.
Great. We have 33 questions in the Q&A and a whopping 11 minutes. So I don't know how rapid fire you want to do these. Paul, I know you said you wanted to triage, and I'm happy to let you do so.
Feel free to hop in, and I'll shout something out too if I see it.
Cool. All right. So public service announcement, everybody hop over to the Q&A and look through the questions and upvote your favorites. We will work through them most popular to least popular. So I'll give you just, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds here to skim through, see if your question's been asked, and give it a thumbs up if it has, and if it hasn't, add it into the mix. And then Paul and I will just throw questions at Colette until we run out of time. That's the plan.
Okay, so one question that came up was, do you have any data on which types of customers find Service Hub to meet their needs more than other customers? For example, B2B SaaS or others. I would say for sure, any B2B business is a fantastic fit for all the different Service Hub tools. Any company with account management or customer success teams, I think will find this type of experience to be great. But since we also support the contact object and custom objects, I think that there's like a lot of flexibility that you can have. So really what I would say is if you want to track the health of your customers, this is a great tool for you. Colette, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. I see a comment on recurring meetings, so I'm going to take that one really quickly. We are aware of the limitation with recurring meetings. It is something that we are actively talking to the meetings team about. Unfortunately, this is mostly a limitation of how our integration with the calendar apps are set up in terms of being able to recognize that meeting from Google or Microsoft or wherever someone is storing their calendar. We're aware of it. We would like to solve it, but I do not have any immediate roadmap or timelines to update you on.
Friends, I just want to call out, Paul has been very busy answering a lot of these asynchronously. So if you want to look at your question, it may have an answer already, which is why it's taking me a little bit to choose one to ask Colette.
Yeah, I'm looking through the top ones. Any discussion on a feature that prevents a customer from submitting a survey multiple times? Resubmissions. I will have to get back to you on the resubmissions one, but if you connect with me on LinkedIn and send me the question again, I will be sure to follow up.
Colette, how about
yeah?
How about you spoke about the decay functionality? Can you just talk a little bit more about when is a good time to use the automatic decay?
Yeah. Decay is great for when there is something that is a really time-sensitive indication of health. So a webinar is a great example. If you guys were all of my customers and I was setting up a health score for HubSpot, I would say your attendance at this hug, great indication of engagement with the product, interest. We should add some points to that. But if you then do not attend a hug again for 3 months, 6 months, the fact that you attended this hug today is probably no longer relevant. So that's when I'm going to use decay over time. I'm going to say, add 5 points to your score, but have this decay by 100% over 3 months. So that means that by the time we hit the 3-month mark after this webinar, those 5 points are no longer included in the score. The difference between this with properties is properties are considered relevant until they are changed. So if let's say someone has the property of we'll go with a really basic example, but there's a property value that says this company is a key account contact, add 5 points. We are going to add 5 points, and we will not remove those 5 points from the score until the value of the property is changed and that contact is no longer marked as a key account contact. So that's kind of how to think about events versus properties and decay.
I really like this question from Ashwini. How do you know the max and min a customer can have? Because if it's a random number, it's hard to interpret the health score and to understand if it's a good one or not.
Yes, and that is where our settings come into play. I think that the number itself is probably less relevant to a CSM than the actual status. So the statuses are healthy, neutral, or at risk. And that's the thing that you should really be focusing your CS team on. The number at that point is really only relevant to see how far into a given category they are. Are they very healthy and they're at 95? Or are they only kind of at risk and they're at 50 and they could go back into neutral at any point? So the actual number, probably not something to focus your CS team on, but keeping them really focused on the actual statuses of healthy, neutral, and at risk will keep them from getting lost in sort of the semantics of the score that are less relevant to the decisions that they need to make. That being said, in the workspace, and actually this is available throughout HubSpot, we have a card that does show the history of the score. So if you go ahead and click here, you can see that Krusty Krab is eligible for 2 scores. They've got an 80 on one and a 50 on the other. And if you click here, you can see the entire score history. So not just what the score was over time, but what are all of the things that caused the score to change. So the score is currently 80. The most recent change was plus 50 because the CSM sentiment property was updated on May 21st. This is a great way for your CSMs to figure out why the score is the way that it is, which can help them better target their outreach to customers.
That's great.
All right.
I've got
one here real quick, just because it has 5 upvotes. But Mustafa asks, for SaaS companies with monthly recurring revenue, what sort of options are there for setting this up inside of HubSpot?
This being health scores or this being recurring revenue?
Recurring revenue in the context of customer success.
Got it. Okay. Your 2 options right now are, if you are using HubSpot payments, you can track this using the subscriptions object, which is great. And then if you are mostly using deals to track your revenue, there is a recurring revenue property on deals that can be used. There are some discussions about how those 2 things sort of coexist and combine long-term. But those are the 2 best ways to track recurring revenue inside of HubSpot, either using the subscriptions object or using the recurring revenue property on deals.
Great. I see a couple of different questions about owners. One person's like, "Can I? What if I have a sales owner and I'm like, no problem, just create a custom owner property." But then someone else said, "I only see the standard company owner property. I don't see the other properties." So can you talk about, like, do you have to create a custom owner property? Is that where the other options come from?
If we're talking about in the customer success settings, then
Yes.
the answer is probably that your custom property is not a HubSpot user property. We can only base ownership off of a HubSpot user if it is a plain text field and just contains their name or their email. That's not going to work. So make sure that your property is set. Your property type is set as a HubSpot user property.
Yep.
That is the only thing that will show up here. And it has to be on the object that you've selected from this dropdown.
Yeah.
You can't have it on a different object.
And then all of them will show up. If you make 5 owner properties, you're going to see all 5 of them in that dropdown, right?
Yes,
Great.
correct. Maybe one more question and then I'll do my wrap up roadmap slide.
Yeah. Paul, do you have a favorite?
Sorry, I'm just trying to see what we didn't answer yet.
I could just summarize a few, call it, and you grab one that sounds interesting to you. We have a question around sensitive data. We answered that one already. We have one about how this relates to marketing campaigns. We have, let's see, answered that.
I can reiterate the marketing campaigns part because
Okay.
like that's the real value of putting your entire go-to-market team on HubSpot.
Cool.
So we walked through in a very extreme detail. So hopefully the detail was helpful for you all about how to actually build the health score. Once you've got the health scores that you're happy with, they are just normal company properties. So you can see customer health status and customer health score here. And again, these are designed to measure how happy your customer is with your product. Are they achieving their goals? Are they using it? Are they healthy? Are they likely to renew? Are they likely to churn? And you can use that to do things like create leads for your sales team, but for the marketing team specifically, you can use that to create lists. And those lists can be used to power all kinds of marketing campaigns inside of HubSpot. So you can say, I want to come to this list and find a specific reference customer. So this is the list of customers that I'm going to contact to see if they're interested in doing a case study with us. If I have my unhappy customers, these are the customers that I'm going to suppress from my email marketing campaigns because they are not healthy and happy with us. They don't want to see all of our really positive sort of upgrade inspired marketing content. Instead, I'm going to target this list with a enablement campaign. So that is how all of this plays back into marketing. And we don't see this very often with marketing, but we do sometimes see it with sales. You can also take actions or engagements that happened during the sales process and include them as part of your health score. This is most relevant if you're going to be building something like an onboarding score, as the sales engagements become less relevant over the lifetime of the customer. But you can also use information that's gathered during the sales and marketing process in your health scores because it's already all in HubSpot. So with that, I'm going to switch back to my slides and just cover, this is everything that we just walked through: the workspace redesign, the introduction of service objects and custom object pipelines in the workspace, pipeline settings so you can keep your team really focused, stage calculated properties for the service objects so you can track how long that onboarding or service delivery is actually taking, introduce contact and custom object health scores. Everything that I showed today is relevant for both of those as well. We talked a little bit about alerts. We talked about the health score reporting card in the workspace. And then these are some other things that we didn't get a chance to touch on today, but are a huge part of the CS workspace. And everything here is available with a Service Hub Pro or Enterprise seat. And coming up on our roadmap is the multi-team workspace, which is what we talked about, where different teams can have different views of that workspace depending upon the life cycle of customer that they're working with. We're going to be introducing a manager view before the end of the year. Everything today was very CSM focused. So this is filtered down to the individual CSM's view, and we're going to be working on giving a high-level view for a manager to see the entire install base or customer base. Expanded alerts, which I talked about. So today we're just tracking changes in health scores. In the future, we're going to be tracking all kinds of changes within your CSM's book of business. And then one thing we didn't talk about is AI managed sales to CS handoff. Because again, we think that the value of having all of your go-to-market teams in HubSpot is that we can help manage those transitions for you. We know that sales reps don't like writing stuff down, but CSMs really need to know what was talked about during that sales process. So we're going to be using AI to pull the most important information from all those conversations that we had around that deal process and feed it up to the CSMs when they get a new customer to help them get oriented on who this customer is, what do they care about, and what are they trying to achieve with your product. On the feedback side, we are going to be rolling out a surveys API. We'll also be rolling out automated AI tagging for feedback survey responses. And then we're going to be pulling in other sources of data in addition to feedback surveys and tagging them as well. So we know there's lots of customer feedback that's stuck in tickets, emails, calls, and notes, and we'll be pulling that into the feedback surveys tool and tagging that with those same tags that we'll be using for the feedback survey responses. So all of this is coming up between now and the end of the year, and we're really excited about it.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. We'll let you all go. Hope to see you all back next Tuesday. Colette, thanks so much for the detail and the answers to questions. Paul, thanks for organizing. And have a great Tuesday, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Tuesday.